Hey YouTube, welcome to another episode in my series How to Start with Monogame. Today we're going to talk about something I call Content Manager. So, what is the Content Manager? It's going to be the one manager that loads everything that is content. Makes sense, right? So it's going to be textures, sound effects, if we have any shaders and stuff like that. So anything that's basically going to be shown on screen or heard or something should be loaded there. Maybe settings files as well. We'll get to those parts at some point. So first of all, I just want to say, remember, there's this GitHub page that I created. Well, this project. I didn't create a GitHub page. That would be pretty nice if I did, but alas, I have created this project and I keep updating it for every episode I do here. I tag the episode. So if you go to like tags episode 3, you'll get the code that I ended up with at the end of episode 3. So you can clone or download that. It's at github.com/slemsvamp/YouTube game project, or just my name, and you'll be able to see the YouTube game project. Now, enough about that, and let's get to creating. So first of all, let's create this new class. We'll call it Content Manager. I'm going to remove this namespace, YouTube Game Project.managers. I'm going to remove the end of it, .managers, because all our other managers, I removed the .managers because I want it in the namespace YouTube Game Project, because of reasons. Actually, it's that is up to you if you want to use the using statements to signify, you know, I'm using managers or not. Fully up to you. So I want to keep a graphics device in this content manager because it's going to help us actually load the textures. Let's see if I can type properly today. Let's see, get return graphics device. Oops, it kind of corrected me, but not in the correct way. And we create a constructor. The constructor is going to be empty right now. Oh, and I mustn't forget, this is basically a reason why I'm doing this video for the second time. I actually recorded it all in 100%, so I want to have it very visible while we work, and I usually hide these actually. There we go. So we have the content manager. All it does is basically say we have a graphics device. Doesn't help us too much. Now, if we go to our YouTube game, we'll make sure that we actually have a content manager. By the way, it reminds me to say the content manager might not be the best name for the content manager. And it's because the it's actually an already taken name, but it's in a namespace kind of deep inside the XNA namespace that you unlikely will have a conflict. And even if you have a conflict, you know, there's no problem. You'll most likely always bump into this content manager that you just created because it's in the namespace that we mostly use. But if you were say to, and I'm gonna try to make this fast and just we'll say .managers again. It's not gonna know what this is, and if you press Control here, it's gonna say, oh, using Microsoft XNA framework content, because there's a content manager in that one, and it's probably, you know, used kind of in most cases, but we've created our own. So that's the kind of problem you can bump into. So if you want to call the content manager something else, like, I don't know, game data manager or something, absolutely, just do it. But that's not how I work. I work with this content manager. It's going to be the only use we have of the namespace. Or rather, we're not going to use the namespace in the XNA framework that has the content manager, the XNA content manager. So let's see, content manager. Okay, and we haven't given it the graphics device that it wants to have. So, you know, it has this graphics device, but we're not gonna give it here in the constructor, and I'll be able to show you why, I think, by just doing this. So at the moment when we're going to call this, we can type in the immediate window graphics device, and you can see there's something called graphics device that is inside of device, which is basically, it comes from this game class. Now the problem here is it's null. So we don't want to send in something that is null, because then we'll just set whatever parameter to, or that variable or field to, null. And that's because the graphics device hasn't been loaded yet, because we're in the constructor of the game. It hasn't really created the entire class yet. So you have to do that later. And the first instance of the graphics device, when it's ready, is here in the load content. So basically what I want to do is here, like, I want to tell the content manager the graphics device. So I'm going to create a method called prepare. I'm going to give it the graphics device. And just now I'm going to show you this way of working, which I sometimes do, which is basically you write how you want it to look, and then you just go here and you go like, quick actions, we press Control period, and it'll say generate method. So we generate it, then I press F12 to go there, and we get this internal void prepare blah blah blah. Now I want it to be public, just to kind of keep it all the same. You can of course keep it internal and see how far that gets you, and it'll probably work out for you perfectly. Internal is like within the assembly, I think, like within the entire project and all that. So it'll work. I just prefer doing it public right now. Maybe not the best practice, but you know, it's something you can read up on and get your own kind of opinion about and change things around. Okay, so it's complaining because this parameter was called graphics device, I think. No, it's because... No, wait, what? It's never assigned to. Oh yeah, but we'll solve that right now. Ooh, P graphics device. Here we go. So if I build now, it's fine. So at the later date, the prepare function will be called, and the graphics device, as you can see, is not null. It has lots of values and stuff, and it all loads. We haven't really done much right now yet, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to have two functions to begin with. One is going to be called get texture, and it's going to take a full path for a file name. I'm typing things in the wrong order. Texture equals null texture. So we are going to have the content manager to load our textures. So we want something called get texture. It'll return a texture 2D, which is something we use already in the game. I'll show you what we had since last. Game screen, startup game screen. We load this texture 2D, space island texture. So we're basically going to just move code right now. So we can basically copy this. We're not going to use it exactly as it stands. We're going to do if file, and it won't recognize it, control period, using system IO. Yes, thank you. Exists. P full path. Else, do throw new file not found exception, could not load P full path. I guess we could do could not find file, because load, you know, it could actually have a problem loading instead of just not even finding the file. And here's where we are going to use the graphics device. So I copied in here texture 2D from stream is what we used in previous episodes. I'm not going to go over it too much, but it's what loads the texture without using any kind of pipeline. And instead of doing it like this, I'm going to say using stream equals this. Oh, except this one, we don't want to always open this file when we say get texture. We want to open the actual file we're asking for. And we're going to say from that stream. So texture equals whatever this does. Oops, I'm being a bit messy here, so sorry. We're going to make sense out of this now when I've been goofy here and like written everything in like the absolute opposite order. But the importance is, in the end product here, we have the working version, which is, okay, we say get texture, and we basically say something like content space island.png. So that's basically how the call will work. So it'll know the full path to this. Actually, full path might be a bad word, because usually full path could mean the exact path. I'm just gonna drink some tea here. Okay, so we could just call it file. Yeah. Let's just call it file. I'm hesitating, you might notice that. It's just because I actually don't load it like this in my own engine. I also give you the, like, I also have a parameter for what folder you want to check through, because you could then manually decide at the point of loading, like, check these folders for this file. But right now we're going to assume that we will always have one file specifically checked for in one folder, one specific folder. I'm going to show you kind of more what I mean here. But okay, so get texture, if the file exists, it can find the file, then open like a stream and set the texture, like read it in and set the texture. That's what from stream does. We give it a graphics device and what stream to use. And then the using statement ends, so it closes the stream for you, which is kind of good. So if we write any code afterwards, it has closed this stream, which is important to close file streams and make sure they aren't open. Else it would say file not found exception, and then when we return the texture. We're going to make the same function here for just because I want the content manager to have a bit more oomph to it and not just load the texture. We will say p file. And here we go, and do the same treatment here. Whoops. Sound effect, and yeah, it doesn't recognize it, so I'll just, yep, use framework audio. SFX equals null. And we could literally just, this is how I usually work. And I would say some would definitely recommend that you don't do this, because now, like, what if you forget to change something of this that it isn't kind of giving you a warning for. After doing this for about 16 or yeah, probably 16 plus years in my life, yeah, a lot more actually, more than 16 years, I tend to not get this wrong anymore. Is sort of what I'm saying. So I do that. I copy paste a lot. It's generally not the best practice. It's always good to like write the code from scratch again. I'd say because again it kind of keeps your fingers warm and you kind of have to type everything. But sometimes, you know, copy paste, change a few things. As long as you aren't doing such things in an environment that absolutely has to be correct the first time you do it or anything like that. Anyway, so we can now get sound effects and we can get textures. So time to utilize this content manager. We'll go to our startup game screen. And now normally in the game screen we throw in the graphics device in our load content. It's because we have a thing called game screen manager. And it loads the content and it sends a graphics device. I wanted to send a content manager. So every game screen has a base class called game screen. And it has a load content of an overridable method called load content. It gives the graphics device, or we need to send that. But I wanted to send the content manager. Now changing it like this will create an error because we have a startup game screen that utilizes load content, but it now has the wrong parameter. So we have to change that accordingly to reflect the change. And base.load content is the is the game screen, the base game screen call. So it now takes, of course, the content manager, just as we previously said. And instead of doing it this way now, we'll say space island texture, because we're in the startup game screen, right? We still want to load these, but we're going to load them in the new way. We'll say, oh, we have this content manager. Then let's get texture, and we'll just say content and space island.png. So that'll load this one, and then we have this one. Again, I'm gonna be a bit of a copy pasty. I'm just gonna take out this first part, and the last little parenthesis is gone. So we're actually kind of doing the same thing now. It's just going through the content manager, and it's just so that we can have control over how things are loaded, because we might want to do it in different ways. Like the real reason to why we want to change this is the pipeline, you know, can be doing its own thing. Like if you use the content pipeline, it'll have to load the file and save it as an XMB, and it might not work for you, etc. This is more, we're in control. We load a file, we make sure it's loaded correctly. If it isn't, we handle it pretty much our own way. You could say that you don't really need to worry about that in XMB, because if it is in the XMB file format, it's going to be loaded. Like you've already kind of stamped it as it's a functioning file because it's in the correct format. Like else the pipeline tool would say, no, I can't do this, which is where you put your trust if you use the content, the pipeline manager. But if you create your own content manager and kind of load everything the way you want to, you know, it's a bit more work, but I feel that it makes me sleep better at night. I want to make a change as well. Content, we're going to have more content like sound effects and stuff, so eventually. So we'll create a new folder called sprites. And I'm going to move these two in here, which means this is no longer the correct path. So I have to update this to sprites. And we'll load. Something is wrong. What have we missed? Oh yeah. So every time a game screen is initialized, we load the content, and it's now not taking a graphics device anymore. It's taking the YouTube game instance content manager, because I made it available in the YouTube game project. We created the content manager up here, and I made it public, so you can always get it from the YouTube game instance. So let's see, back here. So now we give it the content manager instead of the graphics device, and looky, our stuff still loads, and everything is hunky-dory. Let me see here. I think that's done. So this is a kind of a semi-long, like 18 minutes video here for what? Like basically moving texture 2D from stream to another class, and talking a lot about it perhaps, and moving a few files. But the whole concept of us taking the content manager and creating it is we exercise a bit more control, I'd say, over how we load content, and it's going to be the class that we can kind of send to other managers that could use it and so forth and depend on it, and we could it's basically our little class for handling everything that is content related. Eventually, if I ever find out that, you know, it's a big waste of time to create a content manager, I haven't really thought so yet at least, then I guess we would like refactor and kind of make use of the pipeline inside the content manager anyway. So I still kind of feel like the class is a good thing to have. But it's also going to be where we say, you know, maybe now we say get texture, and we just open up a file, the file you ask for, and say, you know, get this file. But the way kind of the pipeline works and the the content class that that XNA uses, or Monogame in this case, is that you call them by asset names. So instead of saying the actual file name, you would have called it something like Space Island would probably be named Space Island. Space Island, like that. You wouldn't say .png or where it is. You would just say, no, give me Space Island, because you gave it that name when you added it to like the content pipeline kind of packer program. Also, I think in general, when you put it in like the content here, it would actually ignore the .png. You would just say, well, this asset name is Space Island, but you would have to say sprites/Space Island, because the root is already content and stuff like that. So you would probably say sprites like that. Anyway, you could create your own kind of data files or something, where you stack 10 textures after each other and you compress them in your own specific format. Let's call it SLAM compression or something, and I'll mix audio and whatnot. I'll order them by the most important texture first. I can exercise way more control of how I want to load things and how they are compressed, or if they're not compressed at all. Maybe I want everything to be opened up in like JSON files or XML or whatever. So that's basically what we're doing and why we're doing it. Anyway, this video is kind of running long on time. I didn't want to ramble too much, but it's kind of my thing. I've noticed we do some things and I talk a lot. I hope that it's not too bad. If it is, please just put it down in the comments. Say, I'd rather you be more kind of to the point and just, show me the code and we're done. Or if you enjoy that I'm kind of talking around the subject a bit, then please put it down there as well. And leave a like or a dislike, whatever you feel like. And I hope that even if you aren't subscribed yet, I would love it if you considered it. And I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for watching.